Good day, and welcome to the Phil Barrett Show here in an undisclosed location in Saratoga County. So glad you could join us today as you listen on your phone or laptop. It is a pleasure. Hopefully you're watching this as well because you get to see Jay once a week, here anyway, and then other times at TGM Studios. Make sure you subscribe. We'd appreciate it if you like and subscribe. It shows that our audience continues to grow. We are growing every week. We've done the Phil Barrett Show just a few times, but I know overall the channel continues to grow. Isn't that right, Jay?
As it does. It's been good. I think we've gone almost 200% increase in the last month and a half. So it's been a great progression.
Not bad.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has. It has. Yeah, we don't do it for the subscribers, but we'd appreciate it. Definitely helps.
Absolutely. Well said.
But we do it for our audience, and as always, we hope that we're able to get you some good information that might be useful to you about local government, local services, investments, economics, anything that would help you make personal decisions in your life. And we're going to talk a little bit about EMS services today, a topic that, unfortunately, many of us will need. And it could happen anytime, right, Jay?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, so we want to get an update from our guest on EMS services in Saratoga County and see how he is faring as a leader in that area. First, we usually go through a couple of updates here about local government, and you know, I know it was snowing recently. That it's about 32 degrees today, but we are thinking about pool season. It's we're thinking about pool season, Jay. You know,
Wow.
got to plan ahead. So this is a time of year we really try to begin to heavily recruit lifeguards. There's no secret that many municipalities and folks that operate pools have had a lot of challenges as we got through COVID. And since the total number of lifeguards in general has been lower than the historical past, and we're trying everything we can to get those numbers back up. We have 3 pools in the town of Clifton Park, Locust, Barney, and up in Country Knolls. And I'm sure many people listening have visited those pools. Some visit just about every day. It's a fun place to be, a great low-cost entertainment option for families. But without lifeguards, we can't keep those pools open. So I, working with the county a few years ago, instituted a new recruitment program. And the idea was to give kids 15 to 17 that's typically the age where our lifeguards begin their lifeguarding career, can get free training. Now, the training, depending on where you go, could be around $400 or so. This gives you an opportunity for free lifeguard training. It's another way for us to eliminate a possible barrier to entry for kids that want to not only learn a life-saving skill, but also place themselves in a position of attaining some employment during the summer. It's a great job. So this free training is coming up again, and I just wanted to get the word out any way possible. We have this on the Town of Clifton Park Facebook page and on the website, but
we'll also include it in the comments below and the
Yep.
descriptions. That way, if anybody wants to click on the link, we'll send you your way.
Great. So again, free training. You must attend a prerequisite swim because it's when we first started the program, we didn't have a prerequisite swim, and apparently a few of the kids thought it was an opportunity to learn how to swim. If we want you to be a lifeguard and get you in that position, you do have to have some swimming skill. I'm not saying you need to be, a gold medalist swimmer, but you do need to have some acumen when it comes to being able to swim. So we have a couple of prerequisite swims coming up, January 5th and March 15th from 9 to 11 at the Saratoga Springs Y. And the classes will take place in January, February, and April. It's a 3-day class. And though I'm not going to go through all the dates, like I said, you can find that information on our Town of Clifton Park Facebook page as well as our website. But it's a 3-day class, and it's free. So it's a great way if you have a 15 to 17-year-old who you want to make sure they're off the couch next summer earning some real good money and being in a very nice environment, a team working. Like I said, it's a great job. And there's other opportunities as well. We also offer a large Learn to Swim class in the town of Clifton Park. You can take an additional shorter amount of training class, water safety instructor class, and that would allow you to do give lessons to youngsters. So you'd be teamed with 3 or 4 other instructors and 10 or 12 young kids, and you teach them how to swim, and we do that with a lot of kids during the summer. So it's, again, an extra opportunity for you to make some money, and we give that training in the town of Clifton Park. So, again, the reason why this training is in Saratoga, it's a more central location with a willing partner. Again, this is a county program, so you don't need to be from Clifton Park. You can be from anywhere in Saratoga County. But at those locations I mentioned, you can get the link. It's also on the Saratoga County webpage. You can get the link and sign up and take the prerequisite swim and then sign up for the classes in January, February, or April. So great opportunity out there. I know some folks have already had their kids sign up, and it's great to have as many guards as possible. We've been in a position each year during and after COVID, because the pools, we kept them open during COVID, of really trying to juggle schedules and try to put together the prerequisite number of lifeguards needed to actually have the pool open and operating. So we have to meet all New York State standards as far as the number of lifeguards on duty, based on the size of the pool. So I won't bother getting into those details because it's not important. We just need more lifeguards. Yesterday, the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors, and I'm chairman of the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors as well as the Clifton Park Town Supervisor, we just unanimously passed our 2025 Saratoga County budget, and I've talked a little bit about this on past podcasts. We had a $432 million plan, almost as big a budget as Jay's. The good news, the good news is Saratoga County is the lowest spending per capita county in New York State. We have the lowest property tax rate, which we lowered again this year, of all upstate counties. I think there's one county down on Long Island, Suffolk, I think it is, that has a lower tax rate than we do. But we did lower it again. We continue to, there's a tax cap program out there that New York State initiated, which always gets talked about during budget time, and it's increasingly difficult for municipalities and governmental entities like Saratoga County, like the town of Clifton Park, to remain within that tax cap while still trying to meet the needs of our residents, because Clifton Park, as I mentioned before, is ranked 911 out of 931 towns, I think it is, in New York State for taxes. As I just mentioned, Saratoga County is the lowest tax county in 55 counties upstate New York. So what that means is if we have low taxes, we also have a low tax levy, and that's what the tax cap is based on. So if you're only allowed, say, a 2% increase on a low levy, a low number, well, that 2% is going to be a low number. So 2% of a low number gives you much less flexibility year to year to address rising costs, especially during a high inflationary period. And at no point did New York State say, well, the CPI is at 9% or 7%, 8% at any particular time over the last few years. So therefore, we'll give you some relief on the tax cap because we understand that inflation and other pressures are difficult to maneuver and still meet the needs of the residents you serve. That never happened. I don't expect it will. So you put all of those factors together, and it has created some challenges to stay within the tax cap. If we were a high-tax town and a high-tax county and had a high-tax levy, well, 2% on a high levy would be a lot more dollars annually that we'd be able to increase. So that continues to be a challenge, but we've been able to manage that and make sure that Saratoga County continues to be a place for people to live, invest, and do business at a low cost, because that drives value, brings value to the people that invest here, and ultimately, I believe that's our job. Does that make sense, Jay?
Sure does.
Jay invests here, so he's happy about it.
Heavily invested.
Yeah, you're heavily invested in Saratoga County, and I'm sure you're happy to know that we are taking good care of your tax dollars.
Thank you, Phil.
You bet. No thanks needed. No thanks needed, Jay. It's a job. It's our job. We got to do the job. We've got to make sure that Saratoga County stays successful and stays in good shape. All kidding aside, but thank you anyway.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm here to support you.
Maybe one day you'll be able to vote for me, or not. That's
I don't know. Clifton Park move.
yeah. Well, we got plenty of room for you if you want to move to Clifton Park.
I grew up in Clifton Park. I was a Country Knolls kid.
Well, why the hell would you leave?
I don't know. Played the
Country Knolls, where? What street?
Payne Court.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Right near the Locust. Locust Bowl.
Yeah.
Barney Road.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Clifton Knolls.
Clifton Knolls. I'm sorry. Clifton.
Yeah, you said Country Knolls.
Well, I grew up. I moved there when I was from. Whatever. Anyway,
we're going back.
Really far back. But
time,
Chapel Wood was where I was in.
So did you go to Locust Lane Pool? That's been there since 1962.
No, I went to the one on Burning Bush.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
So you lived down the street from Locust Lane Pool, but
no, I grew up in Country Knolls, which was off Exit 10.
Oh,
and then
okay.
we moved to Clifton Knolls my senior year of high school.
All right, now I'm totally confused. All right, we got a lot of Knolls. A lot of Knolls in
Maybe that's why I moved. I was just confused.
Yeah, you were too confused.
See?
He had to move out, so it was an easier lifestyle, and
Yes.
he could more easily keep everything
That's right.
together.
That's
okay. All right, Jay. Well, you found a good spot, so God bless you.
And yet, here you are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, all these years later, we meet.
On the Phil Barrett Show.
It's been heaven ever since. So why don't we get to our guest?
All right, let's do that.
He's a heavenly guy. And there he is, Mike McEvoy. Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
So I asked Mike if he could keep I asked him to send me a bio. I said if he can keep it under 2 pages, I'd appreciate it. And he was nice enough to do that. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about Mr. McEvoy. He is the EMS coordinator for Saratoga County. Very, very tough job.
Wow.
And the professional development coordinator for Clifton Park and Half Moon Ambulance. He is a nurse clinician in the adult and pediatric cardiac surgery ICUs at Albany Medical Center.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, another very difficult job. He also teaches critical care medicine. Mike is the chief medical officer and firefighter paramedic for West Crescent Fire Department, which is right down the street. He is the board chair of the National Registry of EMTs and the chair of the New York State Governor's EMS Council. Mike is a lead author of the textbook, Critical Care Transport, the Informed Pocket References published by Jones & Bartlett, and the American Academy of Pediatrics textbook, Pediatric Education for Pre-Hospital Professionals. In his free time, Mike is an avid hiker and winter mountain climber, and that's true. You're always climbing something.
I am.
Yeah, and you're going to be climbing next week too, aren't
Yeah.
you? Yeah. Originally,
quite the resume there. Very impressive, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank
you
you.
talk about some tough jobs.
There's a lot of education there. Wealth of knowledge.
That's why I wanted to have him on.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
He can add some add some IQ to our show.
Not sure about that.
Oh yeah, oh you can, yeah. So Mike, thank you for being here. Actually, we planned on doing this maybe next week, but he's going to be climbing stuff, so I figured I better get him this week.
Where do you climb?
Before the accident.
Yeah. Let's not say that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, well, I climb in the wintertime. I do a lot of climbing up in the high peaks
Yeah.
in the Adirondacks, out in the White Mountains. This particular time, though, I'm going down to Utah and do some
Oh, very cool.
there.
Very cool.
That's how he stays in good shape. You know, he looks a lot younger than he is, by the way. Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yeah, yeah. But well, thanks again, Mike. It's great to have you here. EMS services, ambulance services, incredibly important to each and every resident of Saratoga County. And like a lot of industries through COVID and since, a lot of challenges in the industry. And I wanted to have Mike on to talk a little bit about those challenges, how the industry is adapting to new technologies and new ways of doing things, and what the outlook is for the future. So if you could just talked a little bit about your bio there, Mike, but if you could just tell us about your day-to-day role in EMS services in Saratoga County.
Okay. So a county in New York State could, under New York State county laws, have a county EMS coordinator. And that's been my role for probably 34, 35 years. And I spent a few hours a week doing it until COVID came along.
Yeah.
And then it became kind of a full-time job.
Yeah.
And it's stayed that way, basically, since COVID. And what the county EMS coordinator does under law is two things. One, coordinate mutual aid, which means when an ambulance needs to get another ambulance to come into their territory to answer a call because they're busy doing something else.
Mhm.
And mutual aid plays into that formula. And that happens a fair amount of time with the resources that we have, having to share them between communities.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that a county coordinator does is make sure that there's training. And so we're training EMTs in the county. And the county has for many, many years, longer than I've been here, run EMT training programs. And so that's part of my role to make sure that that happens. I do a number of other things that have to do with making sure that the EMS, the emergency medical services in the county, remain viable
Mm-hmm.
and stay that way into the future, and work with the folks, the fine folks who are out there every day taking care of people to make sure that they have what they need to do their job.
Yeah, and as our population has grown in Saratoga County, the job has not become any easier, because trying to make sure that we have the correct number of personnel to respond in growing areas. And then Saratoga County is very different. You have higher populated municipalities like Clifton Park, Half Moon, Wilton, and others, Milton, and then you have very small towns. And there's a gap there as far as, at times, trying to make sure that we have an even number of necessary personnel based on the population, kind of like I was discussing with the lifeguarding program. And that has become a challenge at some points, hasn't it?
It has, and nationally, it's a crisis, and in many places in New York State, it's a crisis. And I think we're fortunate in Saratoga County to have a leadership of, we have 11 services in the county who are primarily third services, so they're not fire departments, they're not police departments, they're freestanding third services. And the exception to that is the city of Saratoga, where the fire department also runs the ambulance. And they haven't always done that. They took that over a few years back when the third service that was there went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
But across the country, ambulance services are going out of business, and they're going out of business because they're not funded or because they can't get people to work for them to answer calls. And you go back 50 years in Saratoga County, all the ambulance services in the county were run by volunteers. And slowly, the call volumes that they answered became too much for volunteers to keep up with. And so most of the services have had to hire paid people. The only place we have left where we're exclusively volunteers in Edinburgh, where the call volume is very, very small compared to the rest of the county. And that's one of those areas that you were talking about where, by the grace of God, we have a volunteer force in Edinburgh that's still out there answering ambulance calls.
Yeah, we're very thankful every day for volunteers in our ambulance corps, our firefighters across the county. They dedicate an incredible amount of time and effort to making sure that all of our communities are safe. And when you talk about the structure of these ambulance services, as you mentioned, they're freestanding entities. Clifton Park, Half Moon EMS. You've got Ballston Lake Emergency Squad. You know, that's a freestanding organization funded by municipalities and customer pay, as well as government reimbursements, right?
Right.
So these are entities that are basically a business, and they're providing EMS coverage, working in conjunction with your local municipalities. In the case of Clifton Park Half Moon, they're working with both towns. Ballston Lake has Clifton Park and Ballston and Town of Charlton.
Correct.
So there's multiple towns there, and so they're working with multiple towns. And Mike, as the county EMS coordinator, kind of works with everybody just to make sure that everything's being done possible to ensure that these services are available to people. When you hit 911, you want to hear somebody on the other line. You want to know somebody is responding quickly. But looking at that structure, the funding part has become challenging as well because I'll speak to our local municipalities that supply funding in which complements the funding that they already receive, but it is important to their overall budgets. But those numbers are included in our tax cap.
Right.
So you have a freestanding EMS service that these towns are funding, but any funding we give them, any increases each year, is included in our tax cap calculations, which, again, going back to how I started the show, talking about restraints due to lower tax levies and lower flexibility when you only have a 2% roughly increase each year, that's not a lot of money.
No, it's not. And it's interesting because we're not in a crisis with our services here in Saratoga County, really for two reasons. If you travel around the rest of New York State, you'll see that the vast majority of ambulance services don't get municipal funding. And so they're running bake sales and they're doing everything that they can to keep themselves in business, which is not working. And so that alludes to what I was saying, where a lot of them are going out of business. Saratoga County, by and large, the municipalities in the county have recognized that EMS is what we would say is essential. And for the last few years, the governor has put forth bills to say, let's make EMS an essential service. Well, in Saratoga County, Clifton Park, for example, recognizes that it's essential, that we have to have EMS, and so they formed a tax district, and they're contributing to the cost of having that run. The insurance that the ambulances receive in compensation or reimbursement for the care that they provide nowhere makes up the cost of doing that. So there has to be municipal funding. There has to be funding from some other source in order to make ends meet. And you're exactly right. Our call volume in the county goes up by roughly 8%. I think over the last 3 years, 8.08% call volume increase each year.
That's a lot.
And so expenses, the cost of doing what we do goes up similarly. And if you're in a 2% tax cap, you're kind of in a not good situation.
So when you say the third entities, that you talk like the Mohawk Ambulance Services and the private entities like that?
And those are third services.
That's what you
too.
mean. Okay, I meant to ask earlier because I wasn't sure what that entailed. Okay.
Because nationwide and really most of New York State, 85% of EMS is provided by fire departments.
Yeah.
So when we say third service, we mean not a fire department.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would have your fire department, your volunteer ambulance squad, or paid ambulance squad by the town or the municipality. And then you have your third entity, which would be a private only owned
Right.
corporation that handles like a Mohawk Ambulance or Empire Ambulance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Except that these in our county, they're all nonprofit
Yeah.
organizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question. I didn't know if anybody else knew that. So
Yeah, and those, you're right, Mohawk or Empire are freestanding, just like Clifton Park, Half Moon EMS, but the
subsidized
funding
by the
sources
taxpayer.
are different.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where the municipalities have made a commitment to also fund these entities in Clifton Park and adjoining municipalities to make sure that they can survive, that they can provide the service, because obviously we want to make sure that the service is there for people when they need it. So in the current status of staffing generally, I would say in the county right now is challenging, but not a crisis. Does that make
Yeah. And there are a number of reasons why that's the case, because all you got to do is cross the line in any direction, north, south, east, or west out of the county, and you're in an area where the staffing is horrible. And we went in our county from getting out of county requests for mutual aid. In other words, someone from Warren County or Washington County or Fulton, Montgomery, Rensselaer, Schenectady would call us and say, we're out of ambulances. We need an ambulance from Saratoga County to come answer a call for us.
Mm-hmm.
That would happen about 5 years ago. That would happen 3 or 4 times a week. That's happening roughly 17 to 20 times a day now.
Wow. And that's the mutual aid that you had mentioned before. And for folks that don't understand that term, mutual aid is something that's used with, say, fire departments or EMS. We'll take them for example. If neighboring communities or neighboring responders need assistance because they either are busy on other calls or there's a situation that's larger than normal that they just are having difficulty handling, they will call in another entity to come in and help them, fire, EMS, whatever it might be. So that mutual aid term is what that refers to.
and sometimes it's just a matter of having the apparatus sitting in their house, not even going on the road. It's just calling it in from, let's say, Round Lake to sit in the Clifton Park Firehouse just to cover in case another call comes in because they're
Right.
busy. It's a pretty intricate system if you think about it.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a
is.
network of help.
Yeah, and it requires a lot of teamwork and good communication. But thank God it's there, because there's times when Clifton Park, Half Moon EMS, I'm sure, calls in for mutual aid, and fire departments across the region do the same on occasion. So it's good to know that there are other departments that can step up and help.
And our ambulances move around very fluidly in the county. It's not unusual to see Saratoga Springs ambulance in Corinth. It's not unusual to see a Clifton Park ambulance up in Wilton.
Mm-hmm.
And so they fluidly move around like that. And just to get back to, like, why is it that we're not in crisis here in the county? Well, it's a multi-pronged approach that no one could solve overnight. And I think that we had some very progressive people in the county leadership in EMS years ago say, what could we do to make sure that we continue to have EMTs coming into the system? And we have a number of levels of providers, but it boils down to emergency medical technicians, which are EMTs, and paramedics, which are our advanced life support providers. The basic level of care is the EMT, and that's what we run in the county is EMT courses. And so we spent a lot of time years ago making sure that there were an adequate number of EMT courses. And then we sort of branched out from there. And you, Phil, have been a big help to me in helping us to branch out, putting those classes into high schools. So we have a high school EMT program.
Yeah.
This year.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
It's a good idea. It's a great idea.
It's worked out good.
actually.
And this year we have the very first BOCES program. We just started an EMT class, which will be in the Warren, Washington, Essex, the big wishy-washy BOCES system, and that will produce EMTs from the BOCES program to come into the county. We run a military veterans EMT course, which is taught by veterans for veterans, and we bring a lot of veterans into the county, and those generate workers for our folks. So we have this very multi-pronged approach, and it doesn't just stop there because, like any job, people don't quit their job, they quit their managers.
Yeah, yeah.
And so one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is developing and collaborating with those leaders so that those leaders can be as effective as possible and have the best cultures in their services individually.
Well, that's very important. And you mentioned that high school program. Mike and I were together on a golf cart at July 4th in Clifton Park. And anybody that's been to our July 4th parade, fireworks show, it's an all-day event. We have a lot of EMS and police and fire folks that join us that day, working when we invite thousands of our neighbors to come to the Common for a good time. So we were on a golf court during a break in the day, and we were talking about, this is probably 3-4 years ago now, we were talking about, what was going to happen with the future of staffing levels with EMS. And, Mike gave, at that time, pretty grave outlook. Of course, that was during COVID, and everything had shut down. Training classes were difficult to have, whether it was lifeguards or EMS or anything else. And we came up with this idea to offer free training to and try to get it, again, to younger folks in high school age and above. But start planting that seed in their head. When these kids are looking to understand what they're going to do in the future, what career path are they going to take, giving them another option that, hey, this is available. And we can eliminate a barrier to entry, which can be cost for many people. Take that cost away, remove that barrier, and that might get more kids interested. And it's worked out great. And, we've had, I don't know how many kids have gone through at this point, but we've offered it for a few years. We're going to offer it again next year. So if there's anybody interested in that program, you can contact me at Clifton Park Town Hall or Mr. McEvoy. But we do that through our Workforce Training and Development Office at Saratoga County. So we, right after that July 4th, started making calls, working with Mike, and we put together a program and got the county staff involved, and it's been great. And we have great partners, too. We first started with a pilot program at Shen, and then the next year branched it out to all high school age kids in Saratoga County. And it's great when I visit these EMS entities to see so many young people involved, right? I mean, we're seeing that more and more.
We are.
Yeah.
And another program that we run very similar to that is for adults who are looking for some career change. And we run what we call an academy class once a year where for 6 weeks we take people who are ready for a career change and want to do something different and train them as EMTs and get them.
Well, maybe you can explain a little bit about that, Mike, because, you take that first EMT training, maybe you take the paramedic training, but you can branch out from there.
Sure.
What if somebody were listening to this and they were maybe interested in getting into this line of work and pursuing a career in health or EMS services or anything of the like, when you get your EMT and your paramedic training, where can you go from there? I mean, it's limitless at that point, right?
Very limitless. Yeah. And it's a segue to a lot of health careers. A lot of nurses start out as EMTs or paramedics. Physicians start out as EMTs or paramedics. Right. Physician assistants. Many of the healthcare professions, people make entry into that by getting involved in a local EMS agency or a fire department.
Well, I was going to say, if someone was ultimately kind of eyeing the idea of becoming a firefighter, for instance, this would be a great place to start as well.
It is, yeah. A big foot in the door to have an EMT.
Yeah, having that training and having that on your resume as you get into this industry line of work, it gives you a big leg up.
Absolutely.
It shows you're serious, it shows you're committed, and it shows that you're willing to go the extra mile to get training necessary to improve yourself, all things employers look for.
Yep.
Correct?
Absolutely.
That's what you look for, right, Jay?
That's right.
That's right.
I just think back of when I was a volunteer for Jonesville and the time commitment, and I'm sure that's become quite a huge difference now where the time commitment ahead of time before you can even do anything is so much greater. You know, these people that volunteer their time and all the knowledge and time they put in to do the job is pretty thankless and to be commended, all of them, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think when I started at Jonesville, it was like an 8-hour essentials course. Now
Yeah.
it's like 40 some odd, 80
A lot
hours an
longer.
hour, you know?
Yeah.
So just to be able to help your community. So EMS even more.
Plus the training, plus you have to keep up your certifications, plus the calls, plus, yeah.
So I think the fact that you
it's a
came
big
up with the
commitment.
idea of starting them in high school, it gives them a leg up as part of school. So then it's not such a big mountain to climb to get their foot in the door. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, it's worked well. We worked with HVCC, and they conduct the actual training, and other partners, and it's worked real good. But at this point, Mike, worked real well, I should say. At this point, Mike, if you are looking to get into, want to be an employee at a ambulance service at one of these freestanding entities like a Clifton Park Half Moon EMS, like Ballston Lake, what would somebody need to have to apply? Do you need to have training? Do you need to have a specific background, or can you just walk in and apply and then say, point me in the right direction for training, and will you hire me if I pass?
You could do that.
Is that an option?
Yeah, you could do that. All of the services, except for the city of Saratoga's fire department, have volunteers, and so anyone could walk into or call or look at the website for the local ambulance service and volunteer.
Yeah.
And they would get the training along the way.
Almost like an on-the-job training.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage anyone who's even thinking about it to get on an ambulance and ride on some calls, because within an hour or two you may realize this is not for me.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
this is absolutely for me.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good point.
Yeah. So the door is open in all those services to do that, and that's something that we encourage people to do.
Now, see, I didn't know you could do that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
That you can
Sure.
almost go like a ride along to see if you do like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you really should
Yeah.
in a field like this.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure in a lot of jobs out there, but there's a lot of pressure in this job. The things that they see, we in our professions don't normally see.
You're definitely not seeing people at their best. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and just and there's some pressure when you're being looked at as the professional to give somebody appropriate care in a very short amount of time. And I know generally in our society, mental health has been a big discussion. And again, going back, especially, with maybe new EMTs, when they first start to see some things that could be fairly gruesome. What has the industry done to adapt to, that overall need of making sure that we're helping people maintain a positive mental health state?
That's a great question. In our county, we, up until 3 years ago, had what we call peer support teams. And peer support teams do two things. They are trained peers. In other words, if you're in a police department, they're your fellow police officers. And you're in a fire department, they're your fellow firefighters. In EMS, they're your fellow EMTs or paramedics. And they're trained in supporting each other emotionally and mentally through
that's huge.
some professional training that gets done by mental health professionals. And so they provide that kind of on an ongoing basis. And then we also, with those same teams, work with a group. So if there's a bad call or some sort of an incident that has a number of people affected, they'll go out and do a sit down with those folks
Oh, great.
and help them through it. Now, about 3 years ago, we started thinking to ourselves, why do we have 11, 12, 13 different teams in the county? And at the time, our mental health commissioner was willing to work with us and say, let's put these together and form one single county-wide team and see if we can get them all to work together.
Yeah.
And I was a little skeptical that was actually going to work, but when we actually pulled them all into a room together, it was amazing how similar they were to each other. And we currently have about 100 people on this county-wide team, representative of fire, police, and EMS. And they do peer support in their home agencies. And then when we need them to do a group thing anywhere in the county, we call them, they come together, and they take care of that. So that's an ongoing thing that's happening.
Have you seen
day to
some
day.
good positive results from that as far as, getting through those, as you described, bad calls and challenging situations that these folks find themselves in when responding on an emergency basis?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even on a day-to-day basis, you can't ignore the fact that there isn't any EMS calls that get answered where they arrive on the scene and people are having a good day.
Yeah, right. Right.
So when you're in that kind of business, you need a little bit of a perk from time to time. And so one of the things that we have available in the county are therapy dogs. And the therapy dogs come around to the ambulance stations and to the police departments and fire departments. And the therapy dogs interact with the EMTs and paramedics, and they make them feel better.
Yeah.
And it's something that is a recognition that the mental health is an important aspect of what we
Well, it's
do.
important when they're dealing with the person they're providing care to. We talk about bedside manner with a doctor, for instance. Well, it's as important, if not more important, for these folks to have a good bedside manner. Not show that they're, showing that they're confident, that they're in control, communicating well with the patient. Right? I mean, this is something that's very important to that job.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you ever watch TV show Chicago Fire?
Yeah.
So there was an episode where that was actually a big part of the episode was the mental health of the firemen. I know and the ambulance crew of that particular house 51, and so if Hollywood's mirroring a little bit of that, it's actually going on. It's fact.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the show is here they are. They see these gruesome, terrible things at times, and it's hard to check back and come back to the firehouse and reset yourself. In these groups, having support helps, and it's an important thing.
And that field, police, fire, and EMS, they have a suicide rate that's far above the suicide rate of the population, and it's probably because of the stressors in their job. So
I think it has to do with being a guy, though. Unfortunately, men tend to not share that kind of stuff. We internalize everything, and it's a group of usually. I mean, up until recently, it's all been men that do that kind of thing, and I think that men are less apt to speak about things that are bothering them. And I think encouraging the support groups and encouraging camaraderie amongst people of that, so that everybody knows what they're going through, I think is an important part of it. And I think it's commendable that the county recognized that and put a program together to really reinforce that within the services.
Yeah, and I think the peer structure of a program is definitely proven to be successful. We have a very good peer-to-peer program for veterans in Saratoga County, where a veteran that has been newly discharged and is assimilating back to quote unquote normal life, which can be challenging, especially when we had some hotter areas around the world where people were being deployed and sometimes multiple deployments, coming back and having difficulty and having an older peer that had been through that already and someone that they could call upon on a regular basis for advice, help, somebody to talk to, somebody to ask questions, somebody that can help them with their finances or help them navigate attaining veterans benefits, whatever the case may be.
Day-to-day challenges.
Yeah, it was. We have found that program to be very, very successful, and it sounds like the program you're talking about has been as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Jay, I was going to say, if you want to see some women, you got to swing by our ambulance stations. And
Actually, I know somebody that works there.
we have a fair number. I wouldn't say 50-50, but I would say that a fair number of our EMS providers.
Have you seen? Jay just mentioned statistics on, people in the industry that are having difficulty, and God forbid they go the step of taking their own life. Is there any difference as far as gender in those statistics that you know of?
I don't think the difference in the people in emergency services who take their own lives, gender-wise, is much different from the rest of the population. It's just that the number of them are significantly higher.
Yeah. Well, any help that we can give to all these folks working hard in our communities, they're certainly worthy of all of our support. And but like most industries, changes in technology, changes in the world that occur, all things that we need to respond to. What's happening with the EMS ambulance services as far as changes in technology and how that's affecting the day-to-day job of a successful EMT?
That's a good question. Medicine is evolving continuously, and I always say if I stay away from the hospital for more than a couple of weeks, I'm going to come back and encounter something that's new that I haven't seen before, and I got to learn how to use it. And I think EMS is very similar. The use of technology and the things that the paramedics and the EMTs even can do every year has more skill sets and more tools, more drugs, more things that get added to what they're capable of doing. That said, there's a paradigm shift, I think, in what's happening with healthcare in general, and saying, you don't necessarily always need to go to the emergency department. And so we're looking in New York State and in Saratoga County at options to that. And we were in a federal demonstration project here in Clifton Park a couple of years ago where we could take people not to a hospital but to an urgent care center, which for a lot of people is very appropriate and a lot cheaper than bringing them to a hospital emergency department for the health insurance for the patient, and a lot quicker for the ambulance to turn around and get back into service.
Right.
And so that now has been approved on a state level and are in the process of waiting for the feds to okay the program. And that'll be a big shift because we'll be able to start taking people to the proper place and not just the place
I go to
where
Ellis,
we always bring them.
like Ellis over by the mall, as opposed
Exactly.
to going to St. Mary's and Troy.
Exactly. And we have three big urgent cares in the county.
Yeah.
We have Wilton Medical Arts, we have Multimed, and we have Ellis Urgent Care. So that's one piece. The other piece is telemedicine. And during COVID, we used telemedicine a great deal to bring an iPad and have somebody talk to a physician, and perhaps they could diagnose exactly what was wrong with the person and call in a prescription to a pharmacy. The ambulance go over and get the prescription, bring it back to the patient, and eliminate the need for somebody to be transported at all and still get reimbursed for that care that they provide. And so that's something that is slowly getting some traction at the state level and at the federal level, and I think that's going to be a big change going down the road into the future. But the other thing that happened was, and you know this, during COVID, EMS all of a sudden, their job changed dramatically.
Yeah.
In Saratoga County, our ambulance services did all of the homebound vaccination pretty much. You know, the visiting nurses and public
Right.
health folks had a very hard time keeping up with just running their clinics. And so we vaccinated all of our own fire, police, and EMS people, all of their families, and people who couldn't get out of their houses. The ambulances went out and gave COVID vaccines
Right.
to those folks.
Yeah.
So I think the healthcare community at that time sort of woke up and said, well, we didn't realize they could do all these things. And so our role is really starting to shift to more of a community based role and providing services to people in the community who have other healthcare needs that don't necessarily get met by what's out there for them. So
You know, one thing you mentioned in there that's extremely important, I think, you know, with everything we do, we look to cost and look to service. All two very important things of what we do every day. But one thing you mentioned was changing the way we do things to get that ambulance back in service quickly. I mean, that's efficiency.
Yeah.
And that is just as important as everything else we just mentioned. Having a shorter trip, going into a facility where they'll be seen more quickly, they'll be serviced more quickly. The ambulance moves, in this case, right around the corner. Ellis is right around the corner from Clifton
Couldn't
Park.
get much
Yeah,
closer
right,
than that.
Right. In getting that ambulance back into service in a fraction of the time that it would have taken otherwise, that might be the most important part of that equation.
it could be.
Yeah.
Plus the impact it has on mutual aid on top of that.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and we have problems periodically. I mean, you read this in the newspaper. The Albany area is the longest wait time in emergency departments in the entire country. And it's not unusual for one of our ambulances to sit at an emergency department for a couple hours waiting
Yeah.
to give that patient to the staff there. And when it's sitting there for a couple hours, that means it can't answer calls back
Right.
home. And
Well, you're still paying those people, and at the time for 2 hours they're not, plus travel time, the longer travel time. So you're paying them while they're there. The ambulance is not making other calls. So again, cost effective, efficiency, not there.
No.
But with the newer way of doing things, I think we're making progress. But obviously, the industry is so highly regulated. By the time an idea is hatched, to when you finally get some kind
There's
of
a new
approval, right? I mean, we've heard Mike mention
crazy.
how many times state. Well, we had to get state approval, and we had to get federal approval.
yeah.
Government moves so slow.
Takes years.
Yeah, it does. The wheels turn slowly.
Well,
Yeah.
the new thing is
So by the time, we get this great idea, and you can't even implement it. Some of these things till
there's new
years
stuff
down the
coming in.
road.
Yeah,
go ahead.
there's new coming in. Going back to your telemedicine, where they're using AI as part of the diagnosing tools to diagnose patients that is on par with actually speaking to a doctor.
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to start, eliminating doctors out of it so that your insurance and more efficiency, and it's just amazing how, getting back to what you're saying, the amount of change that is happening continuously on that front. And to stay ahead of it, it's got to be a task in itself.
Yeah.
And we're using AI right now in our 911 system to track the ambulances. And so
Most efficient route.
years ago, if I needed 3 more ambulances for a big crash in the road outside of this unknown location,
Nice.
I would have to stop.
Undisclosed.
Undisclosed location.
Undisclosed. Yes.
I would have to stop and think to myself, now let me see. I think there's one over there, one over there, one over there, and I would have to say I want this
Call
one,
them
this one,
individually
and
and
this
find
one.
out where they are.
And now all I do is I say I need 3 ambulances. They push a button, the computer finds the 3 closest ambulances, and it doesn't just do it as a crow flies. It's looking at, is there a roadblock here?
Traffic
Is
pattern.
traffic pattern here?
Incredible.
Is this one moving back from the hospital and it's going to pass by there? And it is
It's all done in
phenomenal.
real time.
Phenomenal
Yeah.
what the technology is doing for us.
Well, that's a good example of positive use of technology. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't have to ask permission from anyone to do that. we put that in place. A lot of things we do just by ourselves.
So we talked a lot about recruitment, retention. We gave examples of programs that are out there, free training or not, volunteer opportunities, knocking on the door of an EMS provider and just saying, hey, I want to get involved. What do I need to do? Or getting the training ahead of time and then applying and getting the job right off the bat. But what would you tell someone interested in pursuing a career as an EMT, maybe to start? What would you tell them about pursuing a career, the positives, maybe some challenges or negatives? Every job has positives and negatives. But what would be your best advice to somebody who is sitting there listening to us right now thinking about it?
Well, I would say what Jay and I were talking about earlier is get your foot in the door and try it out, see whether it's something that appeals to you or not, because it either does or it doesn't.
Right.
And I think there are, people say, I can't stand the sight of blood. Well, that's probably true.
Most people don't like.
Probably not the job for that person. But
Right.
On the other hand, one of the things that is true for anyone who's involved in emergency services is the rest of the world watches things happen on the 6 o'clock news, and we're standing right in front of it and being involved in it. And there's a satisfaction that comes from being on the front line, being able to help somebody in a time of need. And whether it's a major thing where you deliver a baby, or whether it's the more routine thing that we do every single day, day in and day out, which is help grandma get up off the floor, that there's a satisfaction that comes from lending that help to other people. And I think that's the attraction to it. So in order to see whether that's for you or not, you got to get your foot in the door.
Right.
And, there's a couple ways to do that. One is look up your local service, stop by. The Saratoga County group of administrators has a website, saratogaems.org. And on that website, there's a form that you can fill out that you're interested in being involved in an organization. It sends it out to all the agencies in the county, and someone will get back to you.
Terrific.
With opportunities that are open. That same site, for our listeners who might wonder, like, where the heck is my ambulance, or where is it? What is it? There's a lookup tool on that site. You type your address in, it tells you this is your ambulance.
Nice.
And so you can figure out which is the ambulance that serves.
Where do I go?
And
Very few people know that, I think.
You could probably do that with volunteer fire departments as well, correct?
Absolutely.
You could say,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a thing for me, but I want to do a ride along one day or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's SaratogaEMS.org, right?
Right.
Good. Now, you can also call your local municipality. You can call my office or any supervisor's office around the county where you live and say, I'm interested in getting into this line of work. I'm interested in connecting with our local EMS organizations. Point me in the right direction, and we'll certainly be more than happy to do that. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you being here. Mike, as you saw or heard in the bio, Jay, has a
incredible,
very, very busy schedule.
I have to say,
I don't know where he fits
County, we're lucky to have you. You have a wealth of knowledge. Yeah. I mean, it's working for us. That's great.
I'm happy to be here, and it's a great county to work in, and it's a great county to live in.
Like I said, he looks much younger than he is. And I always tell him he's too young to retire.
I would say
with this
resume, we're going to leave you on for a long, long time. We need you.
Flattery will get you everywhere, right?
That's right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Works for me anyway.
But but in all honesty and seriousness, Mike, thank you for your dedication to EMS services and the health industry in general, not only here in Saratoga County, but in the capital region. And you play a critical role in many different areas as a mentor, a teacher, coordinator, leader. You wear a lot of hats and play a lot of roles. And as a municipal leader, I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Couldn't
being
do
here.
it alone.
Yeah, and thank you for being here. And thank you, Jay. Always good to see you.
Thank you, Phil, for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. We be tough to do a show without you. I gotta say.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go. Flattery will get you everywhere. Keep
Flattery
going.
will get you
Keep going,
everywhere.
Phil. Keep going.
Flattery will get you everywhere. All right, so we'll be back next week with another guest, and we'll keep it a secret who it's going to be at this point. I do want to thank Chad Gregory, our next generation roofing, siding, paving, plowing, who was our last guest and gave us a great rundown on his starting his company and the success that he has realized through an incredible amount of hard work. We also, just a couple of weeks ago, talked to Pastor Roscoe Lilly from Star Point Church and learned how his church started. He started from scratch here in Clifton Park in
Pretty
Saratoga
amazing
County.
story.
Yeah, it was
Perseverance.
very interesting story and very. That was right before Thanksgiving, so I think the message was great. We had Jack O'Toole talking about economics, investing, and what
Had
to
some great guests.
what to look for. Yeah.
Great guests.
You know, everything we talked about, we didn't give any stock picks or anything. You know, I talked about the Trump trade, and we had that conversation here. But all the areas that we talked about are way up since that show. So we didn't give any stock picks per se. But if you listen
money.
and read between the lines, you're much richer than you were just a few weeks ago. But we're going to do more on economics, on investing, because, in the world of economics, things change daily, and we'll try to keep you ahead of the curve. So until next time, God bless you, everybody. We appreciate you taking the time to listen and watch us. Thank you, Mike McEvoy, for all you do and for being here. And we'll see you soon.
Till next time. We were great, we were free, had a country that couldn't be beat. We were right